Thanks. Okay, good morning. It's really a pleasure to be with you this morning. And first, congratulations, because you survived the first days of the program. And I know my friend and colleague, André, he is enthusiastic. He wants to share with his people, but also because we both share the sense of a mission, something that we are researchers that understood that we can do much more if we look at the value of this research and we think at what could be done with it. And it's good for the researchers and also for the global economy. So it's really, it's not an empty word, a buzzword, an ecosystem. It's really, we believe that each will share in its own field and it will make the whole society living better together. So I'll try to share how it came from the beginning, because as always, we have people before us that put the roots of the action, and now we just take it one step further. And I want to share some of the history, some of the thoughts, some of the good surprises, some difficulties, and it's really will depend on your feedback where we'll go exactly. The general picture, André told you, it's about liaison program. That means it's really the first step. If you think it in a general sense of technology transfer, it's really the first easy step. You need people from the university, people from the industry that are able to get together, to speak together, and then to work together. So there is quite a program, and liaison means really to have this link, not just send them to the university, really to be together and work together. So he said that there was another program before it was called Alliance. That's why in my title it says from EPFL to Western Switzerland, because there was a real revolution. We started as a EPFL program. You can see it here. A knowledge and tech transfer at EPFL back a few tens of years ago. There was the two approaches. First came this liaison, and it was called the CAST. And let's say in modern words, we would say it's the pull approach. It's to go out, get to the company, get the needs, and then to see what we can do together. And then a few years later was developed the Tech Transfer Office, which is of course doing the reverse, starting from the results at the university and then trying to get it out. So both the liaison program, now as you can see, it's 30 years ago that it was put on the steps. Now, in almost 10 years ago, there was this revolution. It was working so well for EPFL that public authorities at the Swiss level and also at the region level, they said, why don't you do something like this, but together for the whole region? And of course, to do such move, you need money, because of course EPFL couldn't get this share of the burden on its own. So public money in the innovation side in Switzerland comes from an agency for innovation. Probably you heard CTI before these days, yes, probably. So here it comes. CTI is doing about three things. I'm interested in two. First, they do finance the joint projects. That's the blue. That's the main. It's 100 million Swiss francs a year for the projects, really for the projects. And I'm also interested from the last one, which is a small amount, a few million Swiss francs, that deals with the structure, how you go and the company, you do the business, the mediation to set up the project. And this is done, this is for the tech transfer offices and the startup companies that come out of it. So I want to speak about that today, this time. So really the central part of this whole amount of money is really what the core of our mission. You have, of course, all the labs, the companies, and then, of course, they provide the money for the projects. And then there are some people that do some business around it to get the project together. And then you have the research project. And then, of course, we're interested to have an impact. So today, I'm not talking about big science, fascinating science. What is interesting us is the results that will be useful for the economy. So that means that in some sense, the quality of this interaction will depend on how well your local universities are well adjusted to the industry. If the adjustment is right, the fit is right, you can get them work together fine. If there is a mismatch, the university is trying to do too much big science and the economy is doing some basic production, then it will be very difficult to get them work together. And this is very important, and this is the explanation why we work with all the universities in the French-speaking part of Switzerland. That means with University of Technology like EPFL that wants to make big science, and also engineering schools that just want to do some technical outputs that are useful for the companies. So you need, of course, both. This is just one example that was put as a success story by CTI, that a project that we set up just to show the type of projects that will be financed. It's a company, about 250 people, I think, Posalux, and they do drilling process, but with electric discharge machining, one technology. And they just wanted to improve it. So it's not a revolution, it's rather an evolution, but with the content of innovation, because they wanted to improve it by adding ultrasound technology. You can also cut, for example, glass with ultrasound machining. So by combining these two technologies, this company got better machines for to get out on the export. So this is the type of projects that can be financed by this agency, and is the root of our work. But back to our program. So 10 years ago, this is the French-speaking part of Switzerland. So you take Switzerland, you take one quarter that speaks French, and it's about that. Really, it should be cut like this. Because I can't speak German, my team a bit better than me, but anyway, we can't go on the other side. We can speak English together, but it's not the same. So we're really concentrating on the French-speaking part of Switzerland, and it's also very useful because we used to work together. The different local governments are used to work together, to have common support for innovation. So this is made it simpler. So what did CTI do is to provide money to be able to work together. And what we gained in this yellow part, it's always the French-speaking part, these are the engineering schools. You see how large is it? That means that there are lots of students. It's an important engineering school that has location all over, in Geneva, in Sion, Sierre, in Lausanne, Yverdon, all over in Fribourg. It's a university of applied science that is dispersed and that is used to have the local connection with the companies. So the idea there was to say, all of this is like a reservoir of know-how, things that are useful for the companies. If it can be done locally in Fribourg, the company goes on to there. But if there is no know-how, Alliance will take them to another location, to another engineering school. And if the level of innovation that is intended is higher, then we try to get them with a project with EPFL. So that was the kind of idea. Of course, there are many other players of applied research. You heard CSEM. So there are good examples in some areas like speech recognition. You have a very good institution of research here in Martigny, artificial intelligence. So you have many small units, but it's difficult to organize for each of them a specific program. So here the idea was to have a bag that gets all of them together, and then you have some salesmen that are common to all of them and to exchange with the companies. The other point that I should mention is that the companies are not just watching what's going on. They're part of the move of the program, because some of them pay money to be part of the program. So this is a recognition. It's not so expensive, but they have to provide something. So it's really the Swiss idea of having all the stakeholders that share the burden. So to give you the feeling of how much money, it's about 1 million Swiss francs. So about one quarter is paid by EPFL, one quarter is paid by the companies themselves, and then half of them are paid by subsidies. So in the beginning, it was federal subsidy, it was CTI, then came the different regions together, and so this is not so important, but what is important is to see the match between private and public money. You need both, because such an activity, it's very, very difficult to run a business on this. Some people try, but it's very difficult to make business out of that. But if you have a share of the burden between public authorities and the companies themselves and the university, then you can have good results, good output, and at the price that you can afford. You have a question so far? No? Yes?
Would that be possible to do that without the companies? Because, well, I don't know in Romania, but in some countries, but I suspect also in Romania, it's not so easy to attract funding. I don't know, Alex, what do you think about that?
Very. Depends on the company.
It makes it complex to include the companies, but it's not the only way, but it's a very good way to see how well it's adjusted to the needs. Because if it's just free, then the companies just come and say, let's try, it's good, not good, it's not. But if they have to invest their own money, then it's different. But it's not a large chunk of money. These are few thousand Swiss francs. For typical SME, it's not even 2,000 euros. It depends on the size, but it's very, very small amount. If you hire a consultant for 5 hours, for 1 day, that's it for the full year. So and then of course there are some services that are very easygoing. We don't do it so much because of course technology is out there, but to share information, to have events where they can learn things and so on, that has value, of course, for the company, and they pay anyway to go to some type of conference. But not much money. You shouldn't make it expensive, sure. So this whole region, speaking Switzerland, likes to work together and sometimes manages to do it. It's difficult, but it's done. And then there is this process of just interacting with the companies in a good, structured way, so that the people that provide money know why they do it, and that it's an open and transparent way. Of course, the aim, the whole universities, apart from EPFL, were frightened by the fact that it was just a trick to have the projects for EPFL. And of course, EPFL is leading the train of innovation in this part of Switzerland. This is a fact. Well, this is it. Now, the others, they want to be on the train, but, you know, they're scared of because EPFL is driving the train, deciding where it's going. It's coordinating the whole. But it's a burden and it's an opportunity. But EPFL has to play it right, to assume this position of leadership, but then to have all the others recognize that it's better to go with the leader than just to fight it. So it takes time. And now, after almost 10 years, I would say that the universities of applied science are rather happy to have us on board because, of course, we bring them new projects. So they should be crazy to say, hey, please stay back, we do it on our own. But this was the very difficult part, yes? Yes.
Needs an improvement, and then they come to CTI, and CTI makes the connection with the university. You know where are the best groups for research, and you make the connection between.
It's really the same, this idea. Now the exact process depends. The starting point is really the company that will say, I want to do something. I need support for technology. Yes, the starting point is right. Then it can take many different ways. Some companies are extremely well introduced in the universities because they hired the students, so they go directly to the lab. Some needs they discover the opportunities, so they go through CTI. They can come directly to us, or they can go to the university directly, not knowing, just saying, hello, I need support. And then it's the system will react to it accordingly. But in a liaison program like this, it's the company, it's really a pull process. We start from the company. There is no result that we try to sell. This is the job by our friends from TTO. Sometimes it's difficult to sell from the start, so they add value, make it clear by maturing the project, but this is their job. We really answering to the need of the company. That's why, in fact, half of the budget are paid by the economic promotions of the region. So because really the aim is not to make university richer, because, I mean, it's a few percent of the university budget. It's nothing. But for the company that has these extra resources, the results that come out from it makes a huge difference. It can make a huge difference.
This is a competition-driven system?
No.
The CTI, so if I'm a small company, I just make a phone call and say I have this problem, and eventually I get
as easy as that. The only part is, of course, you need real innovation. If it's just because you're lazy in your company and you're not doing the technical part that you should do, CTI will not pay for it. But if you really want to make innovation and there is too much risk for your company, then CTI will pay the work in the lab for what you need.
You have to make a project.
You set up a project with objectives, deliverables. It's like a small European project, but easier. And just to give you the feeling, the success rate is about 50%. All. And the work can be maybe 1 week of between the university and the company, 1 week of paperwork, something like this, in different parts, but.
It's continuously. I mean, if I have the problem in March, I don't have to wait to the call in December.
Now, in each field, engineering, life science, and so on, they have a meeting to evaluate the projects once a month about that. So, usually the stress with my people is when there's a deadline in a few days, everyone is, please, I'm almost ready, just need to check. And because then it will be next month, but it's regular. Alexandre?
Yes, I think the question before is, I would point out, it comes back to a slide that Andre had on the first day regarding the different stakeholders and the different entities that exist to serve the different stakeholders. And I think that's a very important lesson for Romania, that because each, for example, you, Alliance, and it's very clear that your client is the companies.
Yes.
Now, the client of the TTO is the scientists.
Yes.
And the client of Integrants is entrepreneurs, for example.
Mm-hmm.
And it's very focused, so that the mission and the tools and the communication and visibility strategy, everything, and even probably recruiting your human resources that are working within the entity, are very focused. Okay, these are our clients. Whereas sometimes in Romania there are these entities that are trying to do stuff, but they're not really focused on who am I trying to help and how. And so basically people are just saying, okay, we're just going to intermediate. They're trying to do a little bit of everything. And then it kind of gets diluted, and they're not effective at doing something. So this is, I think, one great lesson is to really, for each, this program, what's our, and for like you said, that there's the starting point is the same everywhere. The path can be different, but it's very clear what the process is. And then for the TTO is the same. It's the scientists. The TTO does not go to companies to look for partners. It comes from this. So I know. I mean, this is like kind of like a business model. Actually, you have to define who your customer is, and then define your business strategy, and it's the same.
Yeah, it's a very good remark, Alexandre, and it really says the critical mass, because of course that means that we have specialized people. We'll hire different people. Then you need some size of this unit for innovation, whatever you call it. It's sometimes organized differently, but it's linked with innovation. And of course, this if you have a critical mass, you have people specialized to have the legal aspects, to have the IP and so on, and you can go on further. Just because it's a good entry point for that discussion, just to show you about the type of people that I would hire that are needed for that. Of course, they must be able to talk to both of them. So they must be respected when they go in the lab. So in principle, they should have done research on their own. Then they should have a position for a long time in the industry linked with our research and development in some way. Just to show, in my case, I did my PhD, that was with André, and then my project was already a collaboration project with the watch industry, with the Swatch Group, in fact. And when the project was maturing, I did one extra year to introduce it in production. That was in the German part. And then they said, oh, we know you're doing a good job, so please come and work. So it's a right way of introducing the people. And then I had both experiences. And then after 10 years where I was leading a research group, then I liked the idea of getting the relationship with the researchers. And I was sent by the Swatch Group to MIT because we were sponsoring a program, a liaison program. And then I was trying to get the researchers to do some interesting proposal, and then we did it in our lab, and then we proposed that to the Swatch. So it was a game like this. So at one time, André said, EPFL has a program like this, but for all the areas, for all the companies. This is the liaison program. I said, it's interesting. So my profile was typical, someone who did research, worked in the industry. Nowadays, in the different areas, I have someone who did the criteria is at least 10 years, did research, at least 10 years in industry. And the experience shows that around 45, close to 50, those people did many things, and they're happy to come back to the roots and share and have some a turning point in their career. So the age, I think for this, between 40 and 50 is optimal. You're at the peak of the experience, you still have the enthusiasm about the projects and so on. I think it's a good point. Of course, it's very different than those that will interact really in the lab. Because for us, the most difficult thing is really to go in the company. If you have a small company, usually it's the CEO, the director of the company. And then you have maybe 10 minutes, 15 minutes to get the trust. If you can't get this trust, he will just exchange a few things like this about applied research and will not tell what are the real needs. What is the real problem of the company? It's really, it's very dangerous to tell out what are the weak points of the company, where you bad, where you should improve and so on. And so really we have to work on that. And there is nothing better. The people from the companies, they like to speak with people like them. So they like to speak to other CEOs. So in principle, I should almost hire CEOs that are making a break, and then for some time they talk to people like them. So that's expensive. That's why it's I have a huge rotation in my team. Those people come for 2 or 3 years and they go. So it's a one model. Of course, you can do it many different ways.
Yeah, one more comment that I would have is that this is a recurrent theme that we've heard every day and from almost every person that has over the last 2 days. That the TTO, Hervé, I forgot, Clémence, Michael, they all had this background, all had this profile of having both academic and industrial background. And I think this is a lesson for all the institutions represented here, that this is the people that you should look for. One obstacle in Romania, though, in some institutions, is the fact that if you attract people with this kind of background, you should be prepared to pay them accordingly.
Yeah.
And even if there is the institutional will and motivation and management decision to do this, there are bureaucratic obstacles, and some institutions cannot, by law, pay people more than a certain amount, with possibly the exception of national institutes. There's 3 types of institutions in Romania. One of them are a little bit more free than the other 2. So then my question would be, how much is it possible to have this kind of entity? Because our project is trying to do this kind of as separate, as a delocalized. But some of the things have to be localized. So how important is it for you to, the Alliance what is the legal status compared to EPFL or to the canton, or is it just a private non-profit, or is it a private for-profit, or how?
Yeah, I'll explain you that. So basically, we did it in a very pragmatic.
Hold on. Maybe could you just repeat this question so that it's
the recording?
Well, there were 2 parts. First, the difficulty of paying enough money for those people that are doing this job. And so I'll try to answer to that. And the second one is in order to be able to get out of any administrative problem, how is it organized in a formal way? So this is a very crucial point, and it's not only in Romania that you have this problem, all over the place, because when you do business, you earn much more money than doing any type of job like this. And you can't just ask people, okay, so it's for the good mission, so you get just the rocks and no money. So it doesn't work. So you have to be really creative. At the start, it was like this to make it easy. In fact, there are 2 structures. There is an association that existed before, and where the companies pay money, that makes it easy. And then the second part of it is EPFL. So I'm running a service of EPFL, like the TTO. Alliance is one unit of EPFL. But this makes some things difficult, obviously, because at the start that meant that when I hired people, either they said, well, it's interesting, but of course it's not enough money and so on. It made it really difficult. So one way we escaped it now is that there's another foundation that hires the people that will lend them to me. But this is just a trick. But the problem is there. You have to find a way. Even EPFL can't handle to pay so much money so that these people stay for a few years. One of the tricks I managed to develop is to say, oh, maybe we have a win-win situation if you work 80% for me, and in the remaining 20% you do other stuff, your own business, and so you feel safe with my part, and I had many people like this. But of course you have to be careful with, well, how the companies will react to that. One thing that I stop is someone who was a consultant and saying, okay, you do your consultancy, your private consultancy, this aspect, and I take over, I pay you for the rest. But the mix is difficult to avoid. It was easier for people that had a private company with some production, you know, that did a machine, hydraulic machine, to clean up the tunnels. One was doing that. Well, fun, why not? And then he went to visit the companies to do work with universities. Then it's very, very clear when he was doing one or the other. So that was better. But I'm trying with each new person, I invent a new way of interacting. It's to try to find a solution. So probably the difference with Romania is that in Switzerland it's pragmatic. So when I talk to my vice president, we should try to do something like this, she listens to me. She doesn't say, oh, you go totally crazy. She just has the requirement. We can't take too many risks. We have to be in the framework of EPFL. And if it's out from that, we can't modify the rules of EPFL. Then we invented the way of getting to an outside foundation to hire the people that then will come back to EPFL.
Who pays the foundation?
The foundation is linked to EPFL. That's why it's the foundation of the Innovation Park. So the director, maybe you had l'Allemand, no? No. But that's the ecosystem.
Where does the foundation get its money?
So I get the money from the regional, they send the money to me, then the foundation sends me a bill for these 4 advisors, the 4 people. So I'm organizing everything. I get the contract with the state, with the companies, with all this. I organize, I get the money from them, and then I have subcontracts with organization for everything. So I'm in EPFL, but at the limit of EPFL. So sometimes colleagues I have from this.
I happen to be legal advisor, so I'm directly interested in this problem.
Yes.
EPFL is a public institution for research
Yes.
and education.
Yes.
And EPFL is the founder of this association, right?
Yeah, co-founder. Yes, yes.
Co-founder.
Yeah.
What is the other founder?
We created an association. The association is it has a board. The president of the board is someone from the company. Vice president is my vice president, and of course.
This is the management organization.
Yeah.
What I wanted to know in the statute of the association, who are the association members? If you can.
The members are the companies. But, you know...
And also EPFL?
No. No, it's just written in the statute that the association cannot do anything against the will of EPFL. So EPFL has the right of veto. So it can...
So the association is not founded by EPFL, but by companies.
It was together. There was
It's very clear what is written in the statute.
No, the statute doesn't say who. In fact, it just says that this is an association. Its aim is to do that. Then the board is composed of. If you read this, it's conducted by the companies. but with the right of veto. It means that it can't do something against the will of EPFL. But the association doesn't belong to anyone. It belongs to the members.
So the members, so the members of the company.
Are the companies. EPFL is not a member. It's on the board. It's no. It's really. But what you should understand is that this is only the way, the best way to organize, to raise the private money. But then the organization, the structure, we went back to EPFL. It's really EPFL. But this is complex. You can do it other way.
Yeah, hold on. Just one question. Do you see any obstacles to do the same as a private entity? So, are there models or maybe on counter level where small industrial liaison clusters are independent, are funded by the region or by the canton?
Yeah.
Or by companies, how?
Yeah, so it's a good question because maybe it's too complex, the situation at EPFL. The best example I would say that you could duplicate if it's interesting is that there is another organization for innovation, for business innovation for the region. We're doing for technology innovation. And there are another. And this, they created an association. Yes, an association, and it's funded again by the states. It's outside from any university. It's just on its own. So they rent offices, they hire people, they do everything. In our case, we wanted, well, my predecessors wanted to use EPFL as to make it easy, because of course we have all the infrastructure. And then just to have the addition of this association, which only aim was to raise the money and send it to EPFL. The association doesn't hire people, it only does get the money from the industry and send it to EPFL.
The fact that having EPFL really also a lot of credibility.
Yes, and it makes the investment much easier because you start at the beginning. EPFL said, okay, it was my predecessor, one guy, he works 100% and whatever, he needs a secretary half time, and that's it, go. What can you do with that? And it started like this. And so they had to go to visit the companies, say, we need money, and so on. And it was constructed like this. So the entry level was really low. If you create ex nihilo from nothing, of course you have to invest more money. But it's possible. So this, I don't see one should set up any structure to make it possible. But you have to think out of the box the way it can be done. Of course, you may have some rules that make it difficult. But really, in the field of innovation, I meet so many people that earned much more money before than after coming to work with me. It's incredible. And they smile, they have joy, they're happy to do again something they liked in the past. And that because the business is going the way it is, you have to restructure and do some of the things you don't like. And then for some time, they just go again, they refresh their love for technology, for discovery, and so on. So it's not as difficult as one might think if you use this enthusiasm that one has inside. A real researcher that is business-oriented you can find them without paying huge amount of money, but more than EPFL can pay in principle, yes. Okay, so one should say, what's the output of all of that? And this has changed a lot from the beginning. So I try to summarize. In the beginning, we really started from the need of the company. What happens when you do that is that the company tell you, oh, the little miseries of life. You probably noticed that. And they're not real challenges. And this is not the good way of approaching that. And then, so the idea is to approach them and then to have in the bag something that will make a difference. That's money. I'm sorry to tell you that. It's really, when we said to the companies, if we help you to set up a real important project. Then we'll be able to attract a project that has value of about 300,000 Swiss francs. Then they say, oh, well, and then, but we say then it's not a little problem like this. We should address something more basic innovation, what is important for the company. And we shifted from the situation where in the beginning it was, we did in 8 years, we set up about 1,000 projects with 4 people. And about half of them were accepted by the company. So there are almost 500 projects in these 10 years. The 2/3 of the projects were just small projects for few thousand francs, 10,000 francs, nothing, peanuts, and a few large ones. And it totally shifted, the 20-80% mixture. Now it's 80% large projects and those attractive, small, short-term projects. So it totally changed. So finally, inside my unit, it's the whole approach to deal with what are the sources of finance for projects around, and then adjust to that possibility to discuss it with the companies. So we adjusted, we put some realism. So that means that the output now, I can say to all the stakeholders, of course it's expensive. The program is about 1 million Swiss francs a year, but with that, the value of the project it's about 8 to 10 million Swiss francs a year. Of course, some of the things would have happened anyway, but it just makes it easier, more efficient. Companies like to be with some advisors to do this. But you can have a link between the direct cost and in fact, what will be the new research that is generated, and a link between multiplication by 5 or 10. You feel in a very comfortable way to invest that amount of money. And so this is the very important stuff that I wanted to tell you. I had only a few slides about some examples, but probably that you have enough around you. But really the idea here was this pragmatic way to adjust to the conditions of the market, because it's a market. The market of research and development is a true market. There are many things we have to put in respect what a company gets from a public lab with this money from CTI, and sometimes when they go directly to an engineering company that sometimes can do incredibly high-tech stuff, and they get the result when they want, all the conditions, but of course it will cost them 10 times, 20 times, 50 times more. But they have exactly what they wanted. So this is a market, and some of the companies that we contact now, they had one bad experience telling, I was expecting this, and I had a PhD student that did good science, but we didn't understand at all what we wanted. That can happen. It all depends on the professor, the lab, how well the student is coached, and the understanding of the lab. So in a place like EPFL, there are some labs where we shouldn't even call because they just send us to hell. And there are some others, they used to this and they like to solve that interesting innovation problems for the companies, and they say, oh, it's a pleasure to have you here. So this is very mixed because there is no political push to do it. So this is the main difference. The framework in Romania, I don't know it. What's the message from the politics to the university? Do they say you should work with the companies, or don't they encourage it?
But they don't help.
Yeah, EPFL, it's mixed. The message is it's very important to do research, innovation, but mainly by big discoveries and then IP and then startup companies. So this is the message here. In the universities of applied science, with whom we also work, engineering schools, the message is, you professor, you get only 80% of your salary. If you want 100% of the salary, you should work with the companies. And they're hungry, so they go and get some more meat. So it's the whole difference.
And it's also interesting to know that you have seen this slide on the history of industrial relationships and technology transfer in EPFL. All this started with industrial liaison programs in the 80s, yes, I think. The part on inventions, licensing, entrepreneurship came a couple of years after that. So this was really the key. The start was with how to foster the interaction between industry and academia, and Alliance, before Alliance, the CAST was really created to do that. So to break these barriers, to make it easy for those two cultures to interact. And then it was also a little bit easier to go to them and say, hey, yes, we do have intellectual property. What about licensing? What about creating startups? Or
Anyway, my last message is that at any time you can send me a mail, you can call me if you want share experience, want my opinion. It's just one extra opinion, but that's to be able to help you in some way.
Let's create Alliance in Romania.
Well, we're trying to.
You're somehow Alliance, no?
Sort of. Yeah.
Embryonic Alliance.
Well, actually, this kind of what you mentioned reminds me a lot of what I think has been set up already, sort of, around. You have heard of this big laser, the biggest laser in the world that will be built from European funds in around somewhere close to Bucharest. It's going to be, I don't know, ELI. It's called the ELI project. Okay, and this institute that runs that big project, 300 million euros. It's a very large project. They have tried to put together a kind of regional cluster. So first of all, it's regional. It has both institutes and companies, and multinational companies even. And the form seems to have been created. I'm not very well familiar with it. The problem that I would have with it is that it has a lot of political implication and involvement and interests. And in Romania and Eastern Europe, this is usually bad news.
Yeah, sure.
So,
Yeah.
so we'll see where it goes, but but this is done top down.
Yeah.
This is also bad news. So maybe we should try to do something more bottom up, along the same lines.
Actually, we need to ask, this is also a question for the TTO. Someone from the TTO, from the Alliance, establishes a connection between an industry partner and a research partner. Do they get a bonus? Is there an incentive scheme or something like that? Would something like this be applicable?
No, we don't do this.
This might be a bottom-up approach. So,
Could you repeat the question?
So the question was, if, like for any salesman, you get better output if you give bonus, if they get a bonus. No, as I said, we can't buy them with money, because for salesmen you have to pay a lot to really buy it. So in principle, you should play some other rules. Something from the inside. Why did that person would really do its best to have some really good results? No, otherwise it would be totally commercial, and I don't think it's the right approach. If you don't have some sense of a mission linked to that, then you should sell computers or new stuff, because it's too old computers now.
There are no bonuses either at the TTO. But of course there are TTOs which are companies established as private companies, and they have much more freedom to pay bonuses for the salary policies, etc. They do exist in the US, there are in Israel, in the UK, there are a number of them. For example, at Imperial College, they do have a model like that.
But the bonuses are friendship or enthusiasm and so on. We have to live with other values than always money.
Yeah.
But I think for people from the East, it's more difficult to transmit that. But you have to need this equilibrium between both. But what happens with the next speaker?
Next speaker is still.
So we can go on with our discussion. Yes?
CTI restricted to Swiss companies?
Sorry?
CTI Alliance restricted to Swiss companies?
Yes, CTI is really just looking for the needs of Swiss companies. And the Alliance is really restricted to the French-speaking part of Switzerland.
And what is the duration of such a project?
So this type of public support is changing every 2 years. So now we're undergoing an audit. I have the finances to the end of 2015. Then there's an audit, and then there might be 4 extra years, and so on.
No, but the duration of the contract with a certain commercial partner. I mean, is it for
For the members, for the customers, it's open-ended. They're members of the association, and they should get out. They should send a letter, but
they get money. So it's a 300K for 1 year.
oh no. In Switzerland, you never give money for a company. This is evil.
No,
So.
but you have this program. I mean, this is a program between. So when you set up a project, you need a budget.
No, it's not. No, the program is paid to pay the people that do help to set up the project. Then the money for the project is coming from outside.
Okay.
It's two different: the project and the coaching to set up the project.